In the quiet hollows of Tennessee in the early 1820s, a shadow fell over the small Bell family farm in Adams, a shadow that would leave an indelible mark on American folklore. At the heart of this chilling tale was a young girl named Betsy Bell, whose life would become forever entwined with a mysterious entity that would come to be known as the Bell Witch. It all began one fateful night when Betsy, just a spirited child of 12, was playing near the family's barn. The twilight air was still, but the tranquility would soon be shattered. As she frolicked in the fading light, a strange rustling in the bushes caught her attention. She turned, expecting a harmless rabbit or perhaps a curious squirrel. Instead, she was met with an ominous silence that seemed to swallow the land whole. The days that followed were filled with inexplicable occurrences. At first, it was small things: a haunting whisper of a name, a light tapping on the walls, and an eerie sensation that someone was watching her. Betsy would recount the moments to her family, but they dismissed her as an imaginative child. Yet, as unsettling events continued, it became clear that there was more to the whispers echoing through the night. As summer melted into fall, the hauntings intensified. The gentle criticisms turned to outright demands. The invisible force began to speak, much to the horror of the Bell family. "We are here," it commanded, with a voice like a chilly breeze slipping through the cracks of the barn. The entity claimed to be the spirit of a witch wronged in life, seeking vengeance for her unjust fate. Frightened yet curious, Betsy felt an unshakable connection to the voice. Each night it called her name with growing urgency. "Betsy, Betsy, come forth!" The calls echoed within the very walls of their home, resonating deep in her bones. Friends and neighbors, intrigued by the stories of the haunted Bell family, began to visit, wanting to witness the phenomenon for themselves. Yet the atmosphere of curiosity soon turned to dread. Visitors would report feeling an oppressive weight in the air, an almost suffocating presence that seemed to close in around them as if the very walls were alive. The warm comfort of home transformed into an unsettling battleground. Children whispered stories about the Bell Witch as they sat around the flickering light of campfires, darkened eyes gleaming with a mix of fear and wanton imagination. As word spread, the witch's voice grew more brazen. It harassed all who lived in the Bell household, particularly targeting Betsy. "Leave the girl alone," her father shouted one night, growing desperate as the haunting escalated, his voice echoing in the stillness of the attic. But the oppression did not cease. If anything, it grew more intense. In the dead of night, strange occurrences became commonplace. The walls seemed to breathe, pulsing like a heart, exhaling cold air onto those nearby. The menacing whispers turned to screams and laughter echoing in the eerie silence. When Betsy screamed out for help, the entity echoed her cries, mocking her distress as she fell into despair. Desperate for answers, John Bell, Betsy's father, turned to local leaders and folk practitioners, hoping to understand the strange happenings that had descended upon their home. He sought out the wisdom of the region's elder folk, but answers were scarce. The witch seemed to possess knowledge of local secrets. She whispered names of long-forgotten deeds, revealing truths no one else could fathom. While the curious continued to flock to their now infamous homestead, many were too frightened to remain. The Bell family tried everything to rid themselves of the witch. They hosted seances, invited preachers to perform exorcisms, and even attempted to communicate with the spirit. The voices only grew louder in response, tantalizing them with riddles and threats, frustrating the erudite visitors. "You think you can cast me out? Try again." The voice echoed with a snarl that quaked through the walls. As winter deepened, the Bell household became a sight of both fear and fascination. Betsy often found herself standing alone in her attic, listening to the calls of the witch that reverberated through the wood, a chilling reminder of her predicament. "Betsy, I am bound to you," it would whisper, an alluring promise wrapped in a malevolent aura. Each night she felt herself drawn to the voice, a captivation she couldn't explain. On one chilling night, as a fierce wind howled through the eaves, Betsy made a decision that would forever alter the course of her life. She gathered her courage and ascended to the attic where the witch seemed most powerful. Heart-racing, she called out, "What do you want from me?" Silence enveloped her, but it was soon broken by a laugh that echoed ominously, bouncing off the attic walls as though the very structure of the house mocked her. "Freedom," it replied, a seductive voice that twisted every vowel into a beckoning call. "Free me from this earthly bind." The voice pulsated, the breath of the witch brushing against her cheek, chillier than the winter air outside. In that moment, Betsy felt a surge of fear mixed with an inexplicable longing to understand what lay behind the cries. Word soon spread beyond the local community. The Bell Witch became a sensation, drawing attention from distant towns. Yet while many came with excitement, some arrived with malice, seeking to destroy what they could not understand. In the darkest hours, as neighbors extended their fear-riddled hospitality, the tension came to a head. One night, a group of men, emboldened with bravado, entered the Bell home, lanterns flickering in their hands as they called out for the spirit. "Show yourself, witch!" they taunted, their bravado masking the fear that gripped their hearts. The walls trembled, and the witch's laughter filled the space. "You dare challenge me?" An explosive uproar erupted, with the bells of the church nearby ringing out, their tones juxtaposing the haunting laughter. The men, now gripped by terror, fled into the night, their cries mingling with the sinister echoes of the witch. Betsy, torn between fear and curiosity, felt the weight of the unseen desperately cling to her. "Why won't you leave me alone?" she cried into the darkness, her voice rising above the chaos. Silence enveloped her, and the laughter faded, replaced by the sound of her own breath, heavy and trembling. Days turned into months as the hauntings reached a fever pitch. Betsy, once full of life and laughter, now walked through the halls with a heavy heart, her spirit trapped between the veil of the living and the world of the long abandoned. The attic held its secrets close, but the walls, as alive as they felt, never offered respite. Ultimately, it was Betsy's bold actions that prompted change. Empowered by the stories and suffering of the restless spirits that enveloped her, she declared, "I will not bow to fear. I'm more than just your plaything." With newfound resolve, she made one last stand against the malevolent spirit. In the gripping silence that followed, the air felt charged, thick with tension, the very fibers of the home trembling as if the spirits of the walls acknowledged her courage. In that moment, she knew she had to confront the darkness that clung to her life, binding her in silence. It was a battle of wills, a haunting modern-day warfare of the living against a vengeance from the past. Who would emerge victorious? The whispers would not fade easily, but in confronting the Bell Witch, Betsy Bell vowed to reclaim her voice and her life. Little did she know, the attic held not just the echoes of her long-gone namesake, but secrets that could shatter everything she held dear, a quest that would forever etch her name into the annals of the macabre. As the shadows deepened in the heart of Tennessee, the haunting story of the Bell Witch continued to unfold. Would the spirits finally find peace? Or would Betsy's bravery awaken something far darker than any mind could fathom? Something tethered not just to her, but to the very essence of the land itself. As the moon hung low and heavy in the night sky, casting a silvery glow over the Bell homestead, Betsy summoned every ounce of courage she could muster. The eerie silence of the attic, once filled with laughter and dreams, now felt like a tomb where despair whispered its chilling secrets. With each heartbeat, the walls seemed to breathe, alive with a sinister energy that pulsed around her. "Why do you torment me?" she demanded, her voice steady as she sought to pierce the oppressive darkness. "What do you seek from us?" The air became electric, crackling with an unseen tension, as if the very fabric of the universe was being pulled taut by her challenge. "Freedom, dear Betsy." the witch's voice responded, echoing around her in hushed tones laced with twisted affection. "Freedom I have not known in life, nor in death." The sound curled around Betsy, gesturing to the pain and torment the witch had endured, a dark history buried beneath the soil of her family's land. Betsy felt a pang of empathy. After all, who among them hadn't suffered? But the witch's spirit had grown malevolent, feeding off the fear and chaos that had seeped through the cracks of their home. "You have done enough harm!" Betsy shouted, clenching her fists. "Leave us! This is my home, not yours!" In response, the air thickened, swallowed by a darkness that pressed against her chest like a weight. "You misunderstand, dear girl. I am not here by choice. You are bound to my fate. Oh, how I long to escape this wretched existence." Every syllable dripped with longing, echoing through the creatures of the night that had gathered outside, their eyes glistening in the shadows. The witch's voice fluctuated between rage and desperation, and Betsy felt the hairs on her arms stand on end. "Your family has wronged me, and your father must pay for what he has done." The intonations dripped with disdain, as if Betsy's lineage carried the burden of ancient sins written in the blood-soaked annals of history. Frustration welled up inside her. What wrongs had her father committed that could bind a soul in torment? "I refuse to let you manipulate my family any longer." With that, she gathered her strength and spoke the words that would change the course of her destiny. "I demand you show yourself." A moment of suffocating silence ensued, and the oppressive weight of uncertainty clawed at her heart. Suddenly, a whispering wind rushed through the attic, swirling around her, rustling the old wooden beams and raising goosebumps on her skin. The air felt charged, crackling like a storm was brewing, and she could sense a transformation taking place. As the temperature dropped, an apparition began to form before her, its spectral presence manifesting in a haze of darkness. The walls shimmered with a faint light, illuminating the figure wrapped in shadows, a woman with eyes ablaze with the torments of her past. The witch's visage was both haunting and captivating, her expression a tumultuous blend of sorrow and fury. "Behold!" the witch proclaimed, her voice a tumult of thunder and soft rain. "I am the Bell Witch, a name that has become a curse in itself, bound to this land, rejected by those who should have offered mercy. I harbored no malice at first, but the pain of neglect transformed me into something dark, twisted. Show me respect, and perhaps you will understand. Perhaps you might free me." Betsy studied the figure, feeling a strange pull toward the ethereal presence that hovered before her. The witch's plight resonated within her soul. "But you've harmed my family," she protested, her heart racing. "What you have become is a product of your choices." "How easy it is to lay blame," the witch snapped back, her voice rising with the fury of old wounds being reopened. "I was wronged, betrayed by those I trusted, yet here you are, holding the past to my account. What will you do? Condemn me further, surrender your own spirit to the cycle of despair." Betsy took a step back but steadied herself. "I won't be a pawn in your game of revenge. What will it take for you to find peace?" The witch seemed to ponder for a moment, the heavy atmosphere twisted by their exchange. "Not peace, dear child. I seek justice and understanding," she replied softly, as if unearthing buried truths. "Justice that has slipped through the fingers of the ages. Your father's blood might flow, but can you not see the cycle it creates? Will you not help me reveal the truth, to let my voice be heard?" There was sincerity in her haunting eyes, a plea that transcended time and space. Betsy's heart raced with a torrent of thoughts. Was this witch seeking to expose some buried history that lay beneath the very ground they stood upon? The stories whispered among the townsfolk were only half told. "Tell me," she urged, feeling the weight of the witch's history straining against her. "What truth do you wish to speak?" "Your father's lineage hides beneath the soil," the witch stated with a piercing intensity. secrets buried that would send ripples through your very core. The cursed land was stained long before your family arrived, a bitter feud, an ancient wrong. The enormity of the witch's revelations gripped Betsy, sending shivers coursing down her spine. As the witch spoke, fragments of a sordid history emerged, tales of betrayal, greed, and the price paid in blood long before the Bell family took root on this land. "They have forgotten," the witch lamented, "and now the weight of their sins haunts you. Each night I reclaim a part of their lost history, a history they'd rather bury under silence." Betsy felt a surge of resolve. This was not just her personal battle against the darkness, but a confrontation between two worlds, a chance to lift the heavy veil of suffering that bound the witch and her family. "I will help you," she vowed, her voice steady, "but only if you promise to let us live in peace." The witch nodded solemnly, her form beginning to dissolve, as if the very fabric of her being was untangled from the shadows. "Then we shall make a pact, Betsy Bell. In uncovering the truth, we will free one another. Only then will you be free of me." With those final words, the witch vanished into the darkness, leaving Betsy alone in her attic, surrounded by the remnants of a storm that had only just begun to brew within her heart. The walls still whispered, but now they carried with them the faint echoes of understanding, a reminder that even in the depths of despair, the bond between them could create a bridge toward a brighter, if uncertain, future. And so the tale of the Bell Witch continued to unfold, entwining itself with the fate of Betsy Bell, a girl ready to confront demons both ancient and her own. Little did she know, the journey ahead would require not only courage, but also the audacity to rewrite history, both for the witch whom she had come to know and for herself. As the darkness lingered outside, Betsy felt a flicker of hope ignite within her, a hope grounded in the rich, unyielding soil of her home. As dawn broke over the Bell homestead, golden rays of sunlight streamed through the dusty attic window, casting a warm glow over the remnants of a night steeped in shadows and revelations. Betsy awoke with an urgency she had never known before, her heart racing like a wild stallion. The pact made with the Bell Witch still resonated within her, a promise wrapped in the weight of a shared destiny. Steeling herself, she descended the rickety staircase, each creak echoing the ghosts of countless mornings spent in the solace of her family home. The smell of breakfast wafted through the air, the familiar scent of cornmeal grits and fried bacon momentarily setting aside her anxiety. As she entered the kitchen, her mother greeted her with a tender smile, yet there was concern etched into her brow. "How did you sleep, dear?" her mother asked, pouring a steaming cup of coffee. Betsy hesitated, the lingering fear gripping her heart. How could she possibly convey what had transpired the night before? "It was restless," she finally admitted, forcing a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "Restless nights often lead to bright days." Her mother's words hung in the air, but Betsy could sense the unspoken worries lingering beneath them. The haunting occurrences were not just her burden, they weighed heavily on the whole family. Resolute, she resolved to address the mysterious phenomena that plagued their lives before they spiraled further into despair. Later that morning, as she tended to the chores that awaited her, Betsy found herself drawn to the site of the old barn, where she'd first felt the stirrings of the witch's presence. The barn loomed large, standing as a monument to both the labor of her family and the sinister activity that had unfolded within its walls. Hesitation lingered in the air, yet she felt an invisible thread pulling her closer. As she stepped inside, a chill ran down her spine. The barn, once bustling with the sounds of livestock and laughter, now felt hollow, as if it too were imprisoned in a moment of despair. "What are we hiding?" she whispered to the dust-laden air, her voice barely a breath against the silence. "Everything," came the haunting reply, reverberating through the old wooden beams. It was the witch's voice, echoing as if time had bent around it. Heart racing, Betsy froze, battling the pull of dread. "You can show me," she urged, her gaze darting around the barn, searching for a sign. Suddenly, the shadows flickered, and a wind rushed through the barn, rattling the loose boards. The energy crackled, and Betsy felt the temperature drop. As she stood rooted to the spot, attending to the disembodied voice, the air shimmered before her eyes. Images began to swirl, depicting a past buried beneath the surface of her family's history. Visions cascaded before her. A sprawling plantation, its owners draped in the fineries of power, their faces hauntingly familiar. Sinister shadows loomed in the corners, men and women exchanging hushed words, their postures betraying the tension of hidden schemes. Betsy felt a prickling in her skin. The past was alive. It was reaching out to her. "Who are they?" Betsy whispered, her curiosity stirring the air as the figures flickered back into obscurity, swirling like smoke. "What do they have to do with you and my family?" "They were the architects of my suffering," the witch's voice intoned, threading through the visions. "Their deeds were drenched in blood and greed. Your father is merely a descendant of this legacy, but he must answer for the sins of the ancestors who came before him." Feeling an icy tendril of fear wrapping around her heart, Betsy dared to ask, "What sins? What has he done?" The shadows shifted, revealing another scene, a gathering, voices rising in protest. Men and women from the land clamoring for justice, unaware that their cries echoed into a history long forgotten. Betrayal sparked a chain reaction, and before she could comprehend, the barn was filled with the cacophony of ghosts, whispers of pain, anger, and retribution. "Can you not feel it, Betsy? This land is soaked in the injustices of our past. Your father, he is the key to unsealing the truth." The witch pressed, her voice rich with an urgency that sent a shiver down Betsy's spine. But just then, the spell of visions shattered as the barn door swung open and her father entered. A heavy frown marred his brow as he surveyed the dim interior. "Betsy, what are you doing in here?" His voice cut through the weight of the moment, pulling her back to the reality of her existence. She stammered, but the words failed her as the emotions roiling within her caught in her throat. In that silent exchange, Betsy realized that the time for confrontation had come. Here was her father, the man she loved, but who was also a stranger, burdened by an unseen guilt. "Have you been out here all morning?" he pressed, noting her ashen face. "You have to help your mother with the chores." The mundane call of responsibility was at odds with the revelations she had just experienced. "I can't. Not yet," she responded, her voice trembling. "Father, there's something we need to talk about. Something important about the land and the witch. It's all connected." Betsy's breath quickened, urgency pouring from her lips. "I need you to listen." He raised an eyebrow, concern mixing with disbelief. "What about the witch? It's just stories to scare children, Betsy. You shouldn't be playing with such nonsense." "No!" she cried, desperation slicing through her tone. "You don't understand. The witch is real, and she holds the key to our past, our family's past. There are sins beneath our feet waiting to be acknowledged." His expression faltered, conflict stirring in his eyes, and for a moment he looked like the man she needed him to be, a protector, a listener. Yet that flicker was gone just as quickly as it appeared. "Do not speak of such things," he warned, his voice lowering to a grim tone. "It will only bring you more trouble." With her heart pounding, Betsy stood her ground. "But they hurt her." "She seeks justice, Father. I can feel it. We have to uncover the truth." Her father looked away, shame shadowing his features as regret flooded the space between them. The atmosphere shifted, the air growing thick with unspoken words. "Betsy," he finally spoke, his tone heavy, "some truths are better left buried." "Maybe," she countered, her voice firm, "but I cannot live with this haunting any longer. I cannot watch our family suffer in silence." For a lingering moment, tension hung like a storm cloud above them. Betsy felt the shadows of the barn swirl around her, the weight of history urging her to awaken the truth that lay dormant beneath the surface. "Will you help me, Father? Will you confront what has haunted our family?" Finally, he met her gaze, the weight of his silence palpable as understanding dawned in his eyes. "I will," he said softly, "but together we face whatever darkness awaits us. If the witch speaks of our past, then let us hear her. Let us end this cycle once and for all." And with those words, the pact became an alliance, a shared determination to uncover the past that bound them to the Bell Witch. With hope rekindled, Betsy felt the air shift again, the haunting now carrying a hint of resolve, echoing with the promise of transformation. She would not uncover the truth alone. The witch had rekindled a bond between her and her father, igniting a fire that would burn brightly against the shadows of their shared history, a fire that might finally illuminate the dark corners of their family's legacy. As Betsy and her father returned to the farmhouse, a newfound determination coursed through her veins. She could sense a shift in the atmosphere. No longer were the dark corners of their home filled solely with despair. They now pulsed with the promise of revelation. The secrets long buried began to surface, entwining their fates with the restless spirit of the Bell Witch. The kitchen was alive with the scent of breakfast, yet the familiarity did little to soothe the weight pressing upon Betsy's chest. Sitting at the wooden table, she caught her mother's worried glance. "Is everything all right?" her mother asked, her voice laced with concern. "We're going to find the truth about the witch," Betsy replied, her tone fierce yet reassured. "We need to confront what's been haunting us." Her mother paused, the fork suspended in midair, astonishment crossing her face. "You cannot be serious. It's just a story, a ghost tale to frighten children." Betsy exchanged a look with her father, whose stormy eyes held a tempest of his own. "It's more than just stories, Ma. There's a history here that we cannot ignore. We need to learn what happened." The air grew heavy with the echoes of her conviction. Her mother lowered her gaze, her fingers tracing the grain of the table. "I heard whispers when I was a child. They said the Bell Witch cursed the land, bound by anger and sorrow." With each word, Betsy felt the connection deepen. The stories weren't just isolated fragments of folklore. They were a tapestry woven from the fabric of their family's history. "Then, let's uncover it, once and for all," she urged, her voice threading through the silence. After breakfast, the family gathered in the parlor, a modest space lined with faded portraits and weathered books. The walls seemed to breathe, as if awaiting the unveiling of the past. Unrolling an old map, Betsy's father spread it across the table, revealing the labyrinth of land surrounding their farm. "Many tales of the Bell Witch mention a cave in the woods nearby," he said, his finger tracing the outline. "It's said to be a source of her power." "Then we should go there," Betsy suggested. "If we want to confront her, we need to face her territory." A thrill of anticipation rippled through her. As they made their way through the woods, sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting dappled shadows that danced on the forest floor. The path twisted and turned, leading them deeper into a world shrouded in mystery. Betsy noticed her father's quiet determination beside her, his nerves running high but resolute. Arriving at the mouth of the cave, a chill breeze rushed forth, stirring the air with whispers that sent shivers down Betsy's spine. "This is it," she murmured, heart pounding. They stood beneath a towering rock formation, its mouth yawning wide like a guardian of secrets long forgotten. "Are we sure about this?" her father asked, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "We have to know," Betsy replied with conviction. "Whether it's to free this witch or to learn the truth about our family, the truth that binds us all together." Together, they stepped inside, the cave enveloping them in a muted hush. Stalactites dripped from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the scent of earth and shadows. Flickering lanterns illuminated the walls, revealing ancient markings etched into the stone, glyphs and symbols intertwined, telling tales of past sorrows and anger, a record of lives unwrought. "This is where the Bell Witch drew her power," Betsy breathed, tracing her fingers over the engravings. "Each mark is a name, a story, A sudden wind swirled through the cave, stirring the flame of their lanterns. "Betsy, listen," her father urged, his voice trembling. "Do you hear that?" Echoing through the cavern was a voice, haunting and ethereal, reverberating off the walls. "Free me. I am bound by blood and lost spirits." Betsy's heart raced as she strained to comprehend the words. "It's the witch!" she shouted, feeling the energy crackle around her. "She's here! Speak to her!" her father urged, his fear melting into a blend of awe and determination. "Ask her what she needs." Betsy swallowed hard, standing firm against the flickering shadows. "Bell Witch, I hear you. We want to understand. You don't have to be trapped here." The air shifted, charged with emotions that felt deeply rooted in the earth itself. "Your family trespassed against me," the voice resonated, intertwining with the very essence of the cave. "It began long before you, and it's time to atone." "What do you want us to do?" Betsy asked, feeling a deep sense of responsibility. "How do we release you?" "Uncover the truth hidden beneath the land," the voice urged, echoing through the chambers. "Heal the wounds of the past before peace can be restored." In that moment the cave became alive with memories, the history of betrayal and loss, of sorrow imbued in every stone. Betsy clutched her chest, feeling the intensity rise, realizing the depth of her connection to this tragedy. "Together, we can bring to light what was lost." Betsy turned to her father. "But we need to work as one." Her father nodded, and with renewed determination, they set to decipher the markings and stories woven into the very foundation of their family history. They jotted down notes, sketching imagery on the cave walls, slowly revealing a narrative that had been silenced for generations. As the hours wore on, a sense of liberation began to fill the air, the weight that had long burdened their souls, lifting ever so slightly with each revelation. "We must return home," Betsy said finally, her heart full of purpose. "This is just the beginning of our journey. We need to gather the people and share what we have learned." With one last look at the cave, they stepped back into the light, the world outside radiant against the darkness they had just encountered. Betsy straightened, feeling an unwavering resolve firm in her bones. This would not be a burden she bore alone, nor would they shy away from the truths that needed sharing. As they made their way back through the forest, Betsy's heart swelled with purpose. The witch had become part of her journey, intertwining their fates. "We'll unveil the past," she vowed, glancing at her father, whose face remained etched with determination. "And we will find a way to restore peace to both our families." There was no turning back. Together, they would face what lay ahead, each step guided by the whispers of the Bell Witch and the promise of healing woven through the tales of old. In the heart of Tennessee, beneath the weight of history, they would forge a new legacy, one of understanding, courage, and the relentless pursuit of truth.